What is up, Broncos country? It is Ben from Sports Talk Denver. We are doing our last pre-draft Denver Broncos breakdown of what is going to happen on Thursday night. I can hardly wait. I'm joined here today by my main man, Paul.
Hello, everybody.
Paul is not only like my best friend, he's also my brother in love, and he is a massive football fan. He watches more college football than anyone I know, and so having him here is going to be awesome. Paul, you're not really a Broncos fan, so what team do you pull for in the NFL, and why is that good insight for us today?
Well, I am not a Broncos fan. I'm sorry. I do have a lot of love for the Broncos, but as you can see here, I like my Chicago sports teams. Shout out to the Bulls back-to-back 8 versus 9 seed in the East champions.
Yeah.
But I'm a Bears fan, and if you look at the top of the draft, the Bears are going to be very involved with pick 1, pick 9. I could see that as a potential trade back spot with the Broncos. So I think there's going to be a lot of early draft implications for the Bears that will affect the Broncos.
Totally. We both, if you watch the channel, I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, went to Huron Middle School, Thornton High School. And during COVID, my family and I moved out to Michigan, which is where we're living now. So Paul lived in Chicago. Now we're all here in Michigan. So he also follows the Wolverines super closely. Been to a bunch of games. So I think he's got some cool insights for us on JJ McCarthy and where he might fall. But before we dive super in here, very curious, we told you where we are. How far does this whole YouTube thing go? Where are all y'all watching as we dive into this mock draft and all that? Where's everybody watching from? And let's take a look as some of those comments come in. What's up, Matt? It is good to see Matt in the house. Crilly Manilli has been here for a while waiting, and this is going to be super fun. So where's everybody watching from as we dive in here? You might be watching from your mom's basement. As we keep this thing going, let us know where you're watching from as we go. Thornton, born and raised. That is what I'm talking about. Curly, Eric, did you also go to THS? We'll wait for that to come on in. But really, I have read more mock drafts in the past 2 weeks than I think I ever have as a Broncos fan. And the thing about mock drafts is they're a lot like filling out an NCAA tournament where everyone fills out a mock draft, and a lot of times they are just so out in left field that you're like, what is that person even like? I know you're from Colorado, but what are you doing in your free time to make those picks? And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at mock drafts that have actually kind of panned out in the past. And so I did a little YouTube research and was able to find out the most accurate mock draft over the 5-year history that they've done mock drafts. And it actually is a dude out in San Diego. And now that the Chargers have left San Diego, I think we can use that as gospel, right? And so we're going to take a look at his mock draft. Before each pick, I'm going to ask Paul what he thinks is going to happen there. I'm going to weigh in on what I think is going to happen there. Then we're going to compare it with this historically accurate mock draft. So here's the article just to give you that credence here that I'm not just making it up. So here he is, Eddie Brown. Paul, don't look at any of this because it's gonna tip it. But he goes on here and says, over the past 5 years, here he is. I'm tied for first over the past 5 years. And last year, here's the third most accurate. So we'll see how accurate that ends up being today. So let's dive right on in. I mean, I think there's a lot of controversy over what the Bears are going to do at number 1, right, Paul?
Yeah, there used to be, but not anymore. I think we all know Caleb's going number 1.
Wow, he did it before I even played the sound effect.
Oh, sorry about that.
Well, maybe before we do that, other than Caleb Williams, who do you think is the best quarterback that Sean Payton could that would fit a Sean Payton system?
So I know I have a little bit of bias as a Michigan fan here, but I really do think JJ McCarthy would be perfect. He's just one of those guys, kind of like a Drew Brees, where he's just great at getting the ball, reading the defense instantly, and knowing this is the playmaker who I need to get the ball to and getting it there. So I really like him as a taller, even more mobile Drew Brees, obviously that's a very high comparison. I'm not promising he'll be that great, but I think he's a good fit. And honestly, I think Bo Nix similarly is just like a very high accuracy, get it quickly into your playmakers. That's kind of what I think of when I see Sean Payton offenses. So I think either one of them could be great.
So watching a lot of JJ this year, do you think that his lack of numbers, like he threw the ball so much less than a lot of these other dudes, do you think that was because he does not have the ability and Harbaugh doesn't trust it, or what is the reason for the lack of his production?
I think that's just a Harbaugh thing. I mean, you go back to the Stanford days with like Toby Gerhart, like even when he had Andrew Luck, Harbaugh is a ground and pound guy. He likes to be physical, establish the run, and the quarterback just needs to make plays when he needs them. And JJ always did that. He had like the highest third down completion rate in the country. If the Broncos do end up drafting JJ, I'll send you like a bunch of different clips of like some of his highlights. He made some of the most ridiculous throws I've ever seen this year, just like into coverage on the run. He can make every throw in the book, very few mistakes through just very efficient. And I don't think it was a lack of trust from Harbaugh. I think it was just a we know we're more physical than you. And honestly, I think it can be a strength too, because like so many of these guys are just in the shotgun every single play throwing that when they get to the NFL, they're not really sure what they're doing. Like there's so much more like NFL offenses are so much more complicated and you got to be under center more often. And JJ is one of these guys who's actually done that in college. And I think he'll transition a lot better into the pros.
Do you think that that like ground and pound style is how Harbaugh will like play in the NFL? And then what does that mean? Like knowing that we need to beat the Chargers twice a year, do you think is he going to do something like that with the Los Angeles Chargers?
Yeah, I would definitely expect that. And I would expect you're going to have to be a very physical team to beat the Chargers. And maybe, I mean, Justin Herbert's pretty special. I'd imagine you are going to see him taking some deep shots, and JJ would take a lot of deep shots for Michigan too. But I mean, there's every Harbaugh team ever going back to before he was even at Stanford is incredibly physical.
Cool, cool. All right, so let's yeah, perfect. Let's dive on in now to the prediction. So with the overall number 1 pick in the NFL draft, Paul, who does Chicago Bears take?
Got to be Caleb Williams.
Got to be Caleb Williams. All
Got to
right.
be Caleb Williams.
I agree with that pick. We are going to go to our mock draft out of San Diego, the most accurate mock draft of all time. And they too pick Caleb Williams out of USC. Yeah, how do you, I mean, as a Bears fan, tons of red flags, man. The painting the nails. I made a short on YouTube that like did fairly well because I think a lot of people are feeling this. Like he didn't let anyone look at his medicals. He's painting his nails. He reminds me of just like a diva, and I don't think he's proven himself to be that. Justin Fields owned that locker room. They loved him. Do you think Caleb Williams can step in and lead that locker room that loved Fields?
I think there'll definitely be challenges. The locker room definitely loved Fields, and I think every rookie kind of has to adjust from being like the king of campus when they're in college to all of a sudden they're the rookie and they're getting picked on and buying the whole team dinner and carrying their bags and stuff. There's always a big adjustment, but I think the whole nail painting and sometimes the attitude is he's just got a lot of confidence. And there's been quite a few videos lately where he's talking about like the expectation he has for himself and he sees himself as the greatest, and it can rub people the wrong way when you hear people talk about themselves that way. But I mean, that's how Jordan talked. That's how Brady feels about himself. Like he's definitely more open about it than I think Jordan and Brady were before they proved anything. And if he doesn't prove anything, he's going to fall flat on his face and look like an idiot. But the great ones have that mentality. And I do love the confidence he has. And he clearly doesn't care what anybody thinks. And he's a very, very competitive guy. I know a lot of people ripped on him for crying in the stands, but I loved it. Like he so many of these football players, it seems like it's just about, oh, I want to make the big bucks and be an Instagram star. And like you can see, he loves football. He loves to win. He wants to be the best. Like he was visibly frustrated losing a game when his team wasn't really even in contention. He just loves the game, and I like that about him. He's definitely got to prove some things, has some red flags, but I think the talent far outweighs that.
And like the Chicago has never had a 4,000-yard passer. Like I think one of the best quarterbacks Chicago has ever had is Jay Cutler. What is the reason for that? Like we both lived there. It is cold, but it's cold in Green Bay. Like, what is the reason for the lack of a quarterback ever actually working in Chicago? And do you think that's going to be a problem for him?
I think a lot of it is just front office ineptitude and not changing with the way the NFL went. I think back in like the 60s and then again in 85, the Bears were built on defense. And so like this like upper management saw that and they're like, we are a defensive organization. And even like when I was growing up watching Urlacher and Briggs and Tillman and even in like Trubisky era, the Bears made the playoffs on a great defense. That's just always been their identity and where they draft. But I think it's different this time. When you look at Trubisky and Fields, like those teams on offense just stunk. But like this team, it has a pretty solid offensive line. You got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. They stole Gerald Everett from the Chargers, so you're welcome,
yes,
Broncos fans.
Any of that is good. And even like Keenan Allen, like I think that was one of the steals of the offseason. I hated playing against him and felt like Surtain kind of owned him more recently. But man, I cannot believe they got him for a 4th round pick. So I think that, yeah. So you think it is a lack of investing in the position, not anything about the weather or any of that?
No, I mean, you've seen Green Bay not struggle with their quarterbacks and their weather's worse. It's definitely, I mean, you look at Fields, his rookie year, he was throwing to Dante Pettis and like the ghost of Allen Robinson. And the difference in weapons that Caleb Williams is going to have is big time.
Totally. And we'll see if they pick up another weapon at 9 here. All right. So next on the board, we got the Washington Commanders. So Paul, with the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft, who do you think the Washington Commanders take?
I think they're going to go Jaden Daniels. That's my guess.
You think they're going to take Jaden Daniels? I think they should take Drake Maye. According to the most accurate mock drafter around, they also think that the Washington Commanders take Drake Maye. So you were wrong. We'll see if you're wrong on Thursday night. We're also running this whole thing back on Thursday night with a couple other special guests. We're bringing in via phone. We got a friend actually at the draft, and if there's Wi-Fi connection, he's going to be hopping on the stream with us. And then we have a few other guests in my crowded little basement here. So make sure you're liked and subscribed so that you don't miss a second of that. But all right, talk to me about Drake Maye. What do you think about the Commanders, Drake Maye, and why did you think Jaden would be a better fit for the Commanders?
So my thing with Drake Maye is dude's got a cannon for an arm, basically like a mirror image of Justin Herbert in terms of like size and arm strength and everything else. But I've heard a lot of like quarterback gurus that I trust complaining about his footwork and thinking it'd probably be better if he sat a year. And I'd imagine the Commanders are a team that they're going to want to pick somebody who can start day one. Jaden Daniels was a 5-year starter in college. Just think Drake Maye was a 2-year starter. And then I also might just have some PTSD from Mitch Trubisky. I see a North Carolina quarterback, and I just not so sure about them.
Yeah. I think like that, the accuracy stuff, I know when you're in your underwear at the combine and at your pro day and stuff like that, you're not like those throws don't matter. But there were a couple throws where he was overthrowing, like not even in the frame. And we broke it down on this channel. And I'm like, if you can't hit a guy when no one's guarding him and you're under no pressure, that's scary. But you're right, that arm strength. But I too have that PTSD because I feel like Paxton Lynch literally was like Uncle Rico and could throw the ball over the mountains there. And Elway saw a tall dude after missing on Josh Allen and was like, hey, here's another tall guy with a strong arm. And but I remember Josh Allen, the fact that the Broncos didn't even send anyone to his pro day when Wyoming is like a 45-minute drive from where I was living in Colorado. And they totally missed out because of the accuracy concerns. So I think accuracy is something that you can improve upon. But yeah, that remains to be seen. So diving in now to pick 3. Let's dive in. Paul, would you like to announce pick number 3?
Pick number 3.
What do you think it is?
I'm gonna guess. Well, I would have guessed Drake Maye here, but since he's off the board, then I'll go Jaden Daniels.
The New England Patriots select Jaden Daniels. That also is exactly what our dude from the Union Tribune in San Diego guessed. And so he guessed that Jaden Daniels is picked up by the Patriots. So a lot of talk here about the Patriots maybe should trade back. What are your thoughts there of like, should the Patriots trade back? I think as I think about like Sean Payton, I think he had a crazy good offseason and no one in the national media has given him credit for that. And I feel like last year was, as his first year as a coach, he had so many things he had to learn and figure out and like really figure out like what it means to even play in Denver and the organization. And then he made his huge wholesale changes this year. I'm sure he didn't want Russell Wilson last year. I'm sure he had all these sweeping changes he needed to make, but he should have had a year under his belt. And then he cleaned house. Could you see the Patriots doing something like that?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, honestly, the Patriots kind of stink right now. Like out of all the places, if I'm a QB, New England is not the place I want to go. They have very few weapons on offense. They do have a pretty solid defense, but they have a lot of needs. I guess the only thing I would say is I kind of looked at the Texans like that last year too with CJ Stroud. And if they think one of these QBs is the guy, I mean, I don't think anyone they have is as talented as Nico Collins, but you can see a guy like Stroud can elevate. If the right guy's there, they probably got to get him. But I also, they have a lot of holes. So with how many QB needy teams are below them and how many needs they have on offense, I wouldn't blame them one bit for trading down.
Yeah. Also, like, obviously we got Marvin Harrison Jr. on the board there. Is there any merit if you are the Patriots knowing that you got, like you said, you have a bunch of problems and you're going to have a hard time developing a quarterback with that talent? Could you name a single player on the Patriots right now? That's bad.
I don't know.
Bill Belichick is furious. Do you even know the name of the coach?
Jared Mayo. Yeah,
Okay.
That's Jared Mayo.
Okay, cool. That's good. How about the owner?
Robert Kraft.
How about a tight end who's in prison? Okay. Yeah. I just remembered. Okay. We're live. Let's edit.
Okay.
Cut that part. Yeah. Any thought there would it be smarter for the Patriots to take a receiver at 3 and know that then next year you're going to be bad this year. And then next year you could get Shadur and have, a great receiver and some talent for him.
That's definitely interesting if they can get their QB next year. But I personally, this is a great receiver class. So I think it would be smarter to trade down, get a Neighbors or an Odunze or even like a Xavier Worthy or one of the Lad McConkey, one of these guys, and add the extra picks to bolster the team.
Yeah, I think for sure the draft truly opens up at 3. That is a place where I think there's a lot of speculation that a team could move in there for 3, knowing that Maye or Daniels and Caleb Williams are off the board, but you could get the 3rd best quarterback. And what do you think is an acceptable package? Like, as a Bears fan, you have history of trading up and having that not work out for you. What do you think is like worth giving up to move into that 3rd spot? Like, what would you say? What did you guys give up to move up for Trubisky?
So for Trubisky, the Bears had the 3rd pick, so they only moved from 3 to 2. So I think they gave up like a 2nd and a 3rd. And I mean, and when you can just sit there and take Mahomes, that obviously feels like it, it didn't work out well for us. But it obviously it depends on where you're coming from in the draft. If the Broncos are wanting to move up to 3, I think you're talking pick 12, a 2025 first, maybe even a couple mid-round picks on top of it. And another factor is who else is calling to move up to the 3rd. It's possible you have to give up a 2025 first and a 2026 first. It's not going to go cheap if you're coming all the way from number 12.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think I've talked about it ad nauseum on here, but first round quarterbacks hit at a 36% chance of having them sign their second deal. And I do not want to give up multiple first round picks with how capped we are already because of the Russell Wilson deal. I trust Sean Payton. He came out and said in his pre-draft meetings that we are going to do a good job evaluating quarterback talent, and we're happy that other people are not. So how does that make you feel as a Bears fan there to hear Sean Payton? Like, what is the national feel about Sean Payton? Like, do you feel like the Broncos had a good offseason, and what do you think about Sean Payton?
I mean, I really respect Sean Payton. I mean, I think he did a great job in New Orleans, obviously. I mean, and even from year 1 to year 2 in Denver, you could see the team improved quite a bit. Like I have a lot of respect for Sean Payton. I mean, I do think as somebody who's not plugged into Denver as much as you are, I don't think the Broncos have been super relevant this offseason. Like
Get out of my house.
The most
out
news
of
your average fan has seen from Denver is the Jerry Jeudy trade and paying $80 million to get rid of Russell Wilson.
Paul, get out of my house. Okay, so here I just need to tell you, we have not taken a step back at any single position, and we have taken the brunt of that $80 million this year. We're gonna have the most cap space in the entire league next year, and we have the richest owner in sports. And I think that's something everyone's sleeping on. We got Josh Reynolds, who I would take over Jerry Jeudy any day. The only spot I'm worried about is our center. We lost Cushenberry. We brought in your boy.
Oh, yeah, he's not good.
Yeah, okay. But here's the thing: like Cushenberry was not good until you put 2 All-Pro guards next to him.
That helps.
And like, yeah, honestly, it's huge. I don't even know. Like, I'm new to YouTube here, but a guy just gave us money here. So massive shout out. If we keep getting these, Paul will take his shirt off or he'll keep it on. So huge shout out. Love this. Best available at 12 or trade back or trade up and give the future. Let me know what you think. I would definitely go for best available at 12 or trade back and have Peyton get the guy he wants all along. I've been saying on here that my hope is that Sean Payton and George Payton have been grinding film, and we know they have in their pre-draft meeting 2 days ago. You just heard them talk about spending 4 hours evaluating 5th round draft picks. So like these guys have been crunching the film. My hope is that they wrote down the quarterback they want. They folded it down and they like put it in a sealed envelope. And then if that person's available, take him at 12, but don't just settle on a guy. We saw how that plays out with Paxton Lynch. We saw how that plays out with Drew Lock, and we can't do it again. We even heard George Payton say it's not going to happen again. What do you think, Paul?
I think trading back would make the most sense unless if JJ McCarthy falls to like 7 or 8, or even one of these other top 3 guys, but I don't think any of them are falling past 3. But if say nobody trades up and you see JJ McCarthy there at 7 or 8, and you could move up for say like a 2nd and a 4th or something like that, totally. I probably would do that for JJ McCarthy.
Yep. I would trade up, and that actually might be a situation in this draft that we're looking at here, this mock draft that has JJ falling way further than I thought he would. And if it's there, I think that would be very good. So thank you so much for the super chat. That is amazing. Here we go. We got our boy Phil in the chat. Unrelated question. Ben, can you confirm the Broncos are still a way better franchise for a QB to go to, say, compared to the dumpster fire of the Bears? That is a cold, hard fact. That is a cold, hard fact. And truly, you would say, like, if you are a quarterback and you would want to go somewhere, you would rather go to the place where you have Jake Plummer is like made an AFC championship. And then obviously you got Elway winning championships. You have obviously the sheriff who beat your Bears in the Super Bowl. Like, why would you not want to go to Denver to play quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, historically, you're probably better off going to like the CFL than the Bears, but times are changing. Things
Yeah.
are different. It's gonna work this time.
Because of AI. Chat
Yes.
GPT is changing it all.
Yes.
My man Jacob out in England, we are working on a really cool community for all y'all, and we can't wait to share it with you. And I will answer your texts. I have 4 kids. I'm barely keeping my head above water. All right, let's dive back into the draft. We're Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. Roger Goodell is coming up to the stage. Who has called the Arizona Cardinals about trading, in your opinion?
I think the Vikings are probably the most likely team. They already made the one trade, so they have both picks 11 and 23 in this draft. That's definitely the number one team I'm looking at. I think the Broncos are a possibility. The Raiders maybe. But in the end, I do think the Cardinals probably take Marvin Harrison.
You got to wait for the sound, Paul. How have you not?
Yeah, that's my bad.
And with the 2024 4th pick in the overall NFL draft, the Arizona Cardinals select
Marvin Harrison.
Perfect.
Junior.
Yes, you got that. That is also what our boy in San Diego chose. If I had to choose what happened, I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to trade back. But let's talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. You played against him how many times as a Michigan fan? And
Yeah, several times.
What do you think about him?
I mean, he is incredible. Like, I think it's definitely a red flag how badly he kept getting beaten by Michigan and how, I don't know if you can count on him in the big games when he lost all his big games. No, but seriously, I think the biggest thing is, like, you saw him be great with Stroud. And then this year, I can't even remember what their QB's name was.
Can.
Was it
No.
McCord? I forget what his name even was, but he was garbage. And Harrison still put up the same numbers. Like, he's clearly not just great because he had Stroud. He's great with, I could throw him the ball, and he's going to be great.
Yeah, but you're an athlete.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. You could throw him the ball.
Yeah, then that's how you know he's actually good. Any of the same red flags with Caleb Williams? Like, I think I watched this amazing Conor McGregor documentary, and it was just showing like how different he was, like once he got money, and how you just don't have that dog in you anymore. Like when like you're sleeping in satin sheets, you don't train as hard as when you don't know where your next meal comes from. So obviously, I think we could say the same thing about Shedeur Sanders, but does having your dad like have all that money, all those accolades, and then coming in already having like LeBron in your DMs and wearing Louis Vuitton cleats, and he didn't he get in trouble for like wearing an Apple Watch he wore like an Apple Watch in a game, and then same thing, like a straight diva, didn't go to the combine, he went but he didn't do anything. He had a media availability and then ghosted everyone and all the reporters around, like, where's the guy we're supposed to interview? Any of those concerns? Or do you think he can step in and be a fit for Kyler?
If I were an NFL team, I would definitely just pass on him and maybe let him fall to like the 9th pick to the Bears.
You really would want him over?
I would. I'm not worried about it. I think you're going to see this a lot more in this day and age. I think a lot of like the Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Juniors of the world, you can like the attitude or not, but I think they're coming out here being like, I'm the best and I don't need to waste my time and we don't need to waste your time. Use the tapes out there. I can say whatever I want to say. I can not show up. You've seen the tape. I'm the best. Let's not waste anybody's time. And as for like the whole like growing up with a famous dad, I think that can have its advantages too. He obviously has been told what it's going to take to be a pro. And I mean, Marvin Harrison Sr. was the ultimate pro. And I think something that he and Caleb Williams and Shedeur Sanders all deserve credit for is these are some of like the first multi-millionaire NIL college athletes, and you haven't seen any one of them in like any scandals or anything. They've all kept their noses clean, seem like good guys, and I wouldn't be worried about his lack of showing up at the combine. I think it's just confidence that he knows he's the best.
Yeah, and I think like the number, like you have that dude who set the NFL record for 40-yard dash time. And so he probably would not have scored out on the RAS score, like the relative athletic score, as high as those other guys, but he is the best. And so I'm sure there's part of that as well. And Paul and I are both in education now. And I do think, like, man, the kids in our schools are just so different, and we're not old, or are we?
You're getting
Okay, I guess I'm getting old. All right. What do you think about his fit with Kyler? Like, I, th- I think Kyler is very similar to Russell Wilson in that he doesn't play. His play is best when the play breaks down and he can yeet it deep. Is that Marvin Harrison's forte, or is he more of a precision route running guy? Can he be a Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton jump ball kind of receiver?
I mean, I think that's why a lot of people are saying he's the best wide receiver prospect since Megatron, is he's kind of both. Like, he's a great receiver who gets open in his first couple steps, but he's also 6'4" and will go up and get it over your corner all day. Like, he truly is one of the rare guys that can do both of those things. Like, I don't think it really matters who's throwing him the ball. He's going to be great there.
Yeah.
And I say that as a Michigan fan, so that I feel like that means something.
Like, you're biased the other way. So if you like him, he must be really good. All right. So we got your boy Harbaugh, who just is sporting a sweet new tattoo with a strangely small M on it. Like, I would have bolded that M, but the 15-0 record. So he is now the Los Angeles Chargers head coach, and they are on the clock at 5. Who do you think they're getting calls from? And do you think they'll take the pick? Don't tell me who the pick is until I push the button. Do you think they'll take the pick, or do you think they'll trade back?
So I think this is where you see your first trade. I think Harbaugh is a guy who he can identify talent. You give him a bunch of second, third, fourth round picks, and he's going to find you a bunch of NFL starters. So I think this is where he trades down.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the craziest things I thought was, like, we heard him just tout JJ McCarthy so much and say that he's the best quarterback in the history of the University of Michigan, which is crazy because he played quarterback for the U of M. And then obviously the GOAT, Tom Brady, played quarterback for U of M. Do you think there is any chance with, like, what he just did trading Keenan Allen? Obviously they're, like, in a weird contract thing because they paid Bosa so much. They paid Khalil Mack so much. Like, they are going to be doing a little bit of a rebuild here. They lost, their first, like, top 3 receivers. They lost their running back. Like, they're doing a rebuild. Is there any way, knowing that the best way to win in the NFL is having a quarterback on a rookie deal for 5 years, is there any chance that he shocks the world, trades Justin Herbert for 4 first-round draft picks, and takes JJ McCarthy?
Honestly, like, I think you could make a very strong argument that would be in the best interest of the Chargers because, personally, I'm not a big Herbert guy. Like, the talent's there, the numbers there. Like, there were some good players on the Chargers, and they stunk. Like,
the Broncos beat them twice.
Yeah, like, if you're a top, like, I feel like a lot of people, like, when you're talking top 5 QBs, immediately throw Herbert in there. But, like, what top 5 QB is going 5-12?
Oh,
so, like, I would argue that I think that's the right decision, but at the same time, I don't really see it happening. It's just hard to imagine a QB who's seen league wide as so valuable would be traded so young. It's hard to see it happening, but I think you could argue it's the right decision.
That'd be crazy, crazy town. So we are the mock draft we're looking at. Again, if you're just hopping on here, we're looking at the most historically accurate mock drafter over the past 5 years, a dude out of San Diego. I'm asking Paul who he thinks is going to be the pick there, and then I'm sharing my thoughts on that, and then we're comparing it to the mock drafter's choice. So with the 5th pick in the NFL draft, Paul, who do you think the Los Angeles Chargers choose?
Am I officially allowed to choose
yes.
trades?
Yeah, okay. It played, Paul. Okay.
All right.
Come on, we're live. Let's
with the 5th pick in the 2024 draft, I think the Chargers are going to trade down with the Vikings.
Okay. And then the Vikings are going to
the Vikings are going to take JJ, which pains me as a Bears fan, but that's such a good situation for him there.
Gosh, I would hate that. The pick that the most accurate NFL mock drafter over the past 5 years chooses for the Chargers at this pick is Joe Alt, tackle. So, Paul, talk to me about Joe Alt and why you think why you think the mock drafter has Joe Alt, tackle out of Notre Dame, going to the Chargers.
So he's massive. Like, what is he? 6'9", 320. He is a big dude. And I mean, what's interesting is if you look at when Harbaugh was on the 49ers, he never spent a high pick at offensive line. So it'll be interesting to see what he does here. But at the same time, those Michigan teams were all just completely built through the trenches.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, he is a power run it down your throat, like beat you in the trenches kind of guy. So I do think Joe Alt makes a lot of sense there.
So if they pick at 5, you think Joe Alt, do you think he is the best lineman on the board?
Yeah, I do think he's the best lineman on the board.
Cool. Yeah, I think I don't know. I have no clue what Harbaugh's going to do. I try to think back to when he was in San Francisco with Kaepernick and Alex Smith and all that stuff. It's really hard to see what he should do. The interesting thing to me is how much he's been hyping up JJ McCarthy. Now, as he is getting calls at 5, do you think, knowing that the quarterback at 5 that everyone's talking about is probably JJ, do you think there's any way that he is prioritizing who JJ goes to? So if the Vikings and the Broncos call him to trade at 5, do you think there's any way in his mind he's thinking, oh, I want JJ to go here because he has a better chance? Or do you think he's just trying to get the best deal?
I think he genuinely would want JJ to be in the best place, but he's going to do his job, and he's also not going to be the only one hearing what the trades are. It's a professional business. If he and all the other executives hear that the Broncos offer is better, they're going to take the Broncos offer.
All right, I guess. I just thought
Plus,
maybe
Sean Payton is just the greatest coach ever. Like, he's
going to send him to
might
Denver.
take less so that he could go to Denver.
Exactly. I think, yep. As well, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, honestly, the Chargers are like the worst organization in football, in that, like, they fled San Diego and now they're renting out this stadium and no one likes them. Like, every game they play that's home is an away game, and it's nuts. So I think the Chargers have this chance to like reinvent themselves under Harbaugh, and I think that's a great pick. It's probably the right pick, but it isn't like splashy enough to make you be like, I'm going to go out and buy a Chargers jersey and become a Chargers fan. Like, that's where I think like a JJ would make sense of, hey, we are reinventing this organization under Jim Harbaugh, and we got our new quarterback, and we're building here, and come be a Chargers fan and root for them instead of the Rams,
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see like a Rome Odunze making sense too. Like hey, we got Harbaugh now, and now we have Justin Herbert to Rome Odunze, or him, or Neighbors. I think most people are a little higher on Malik Neighbors, but I think that's another way you could sell excitement. I do agree. Joe Alt would probably be the most fitting pick and probably the best pick, but he's definitely not he's not going to sell tickets.
No, absolutely. He's not going to sell tickets.
Very tall, though.
Very tall. Very similarly
definitely
built.
Can get things off the top shelf.
Yeah, which is a plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Cool. All right. So now pick number 6, we have the New York Football Giants. You are married to a New York Giants fan.
Yes.
What is that like, and why is it so bad?
I mean, I love being married to my wife. We're on live YouTube here, so of course, love my wife. But it is unfortunate having to watch so many Giants games.
Yeah,
they've been kind of an eyesore the last. We've been married for 10 years. That was like right after they won the Super Bowl, and then since then, it's been a lot of Daniel Jones and noodle-armed Eli Manning. You guys got to see noodle-armed Peyton Manning, noodle-armed Eli Manning.
You mean Super Bowl champion Peyton Manning?
He was great for a while too, but yeah, it's been pretty rough watching the Giants.
And what do you think their biggest needs are? There's been talk about them trying to get a quarterback. There's so many, they could trade back. Drew Lock is there. And I mean, I have a Drew Lock jersey somewhere. I thought it was actually no. That's my Drew Lock jersey hanging right there. Grab it for the stream. Here it is, Drew Lock right there, the OG. I was so high on Drew Lock, you guys, and I would take Drew Lock over Daniel Jones for sure. But do you think they are in on Daniel Jones, and what do you think they'll do here with this pick?
So I could definitely see them kind of being like the Broncos of this past year, where they are just riding out that one more year with a lame duck QB who they don't want. So if I'm the Giants, I'm probably, if JJ's still on the board, I'm probably taking JJ. If he's not, then I would go wide receiver. But since he's on the board here,
all right, so
I'm taking JJ.
With the pick, you are saying that the New York Football Giants select JJ McCarthy out of Michigan. That is incorrect according to this mock draft. They have the New York Football Giants taking Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU. What do you think about that pick? And let's throw Malik Neighbors up here. See my boy Daniel's in the stream. Thanks for being here, Daniel. A lot of y'all just blowing this thing up. Oh, we got another Thornton alum. Love it. Love it. I'm a class of 2004 Thornton Trojan. So pretty cool stuff there. Nice. So yeah, talk to me about Neighbors, and yeah, what do you? I mean, people are saying that could he be as good as Harrison? Is he a guy you were hoping the Bears might get? What do you think of Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, I've heard a few draft analysts say they like Neighbors more than Marvin Harrison, and in your average draft class, Neighbors would, like most draft classes, Neighbors would be wide receiver one. I would love if he fell to the Bears, but I don't think there's much of a chance of that. Dude's a star. LSU has produced Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Like they've kind of become one at like wide receiver U the last few years, them in Ohio State. But yeah, I think Neighbors is a star. I just don't know. You know, Danny Dimes spends a lot of time on his back. I don't know how he's going to get Neighbors the ball.
Yeah. So, and is he, you know, as you're breaking him down, is he like a slot guy? I didn't watch a ton of LSU stuff until I've been crunching quarterback stuff and I see his highlights. But yeah, what would you say is his strength? What is he, the X, the Y? What is he?
I think he's definitely someone who can play anywhere. I mean, he's only 6 feet tall, so he's not going to be one of these like jump ball guys, but he's the type of guy where he'll beat you over the top and burn you for 70 yards. You can throw him a slant and he's going to take it 70 yards. Just open every single play. Great route runner. Great with the ball in his hands. Very talented.
He plays paintball and he likes the jet sweep. And he plays a lot of Madden and Call of Duty on PS5. Malik Pretty Neighbors, cool. If you're catching this stream, I'll play PS5 with you.
Yeah, I would too.
Cool. And you think, well, perfect. That's enough on Malik Neighbors. Let's dive in to the 6th pick in the NFL draft. And we are going to go now, or the 7th pick. We're already on to the Tennessee Titans. Oh, and do you think the Giants might trade back, or you think they'll take that 6th pick?
I mean, it really depends on if they believe in Danny Dimes. I can't imagine they believe in Danny. I don't know why you would believe in Daniel Jones. So if I'm them, I'm not trading down. Unless, I guess, if JJ's already gone at that point, then maybe you consider it. But they honestly are a pretty deep team. Like, they have a pretty solid defense. I don't think they need a ton of draft capital. They need a star player, whether it's a star wideout or a star QB. So if I'm them, I'm not trading down. But
cool.
You never know.
All right, so we're going to Tennessee Titans. Now, Tennessee's had like kind of a crazy offseason where it seemed like the Texans were running away with that division, and then they've gone out and spent like crazy money. They obviously spent all that money on Cushenberry. They got Ridley, right? And he was suspended for making a bet.
Yeah.
Which you might not want to do, especially if you're Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. But if you are going to make a bet on the Broncos or on the Nuggets, because that game is about to tip, and we'll be commenting on that as well as the Denver Nuggets go back to back for sure. But yeah, so what do you think? Do you think the Titans think they got their dude in Levis, and do you think they're going to make a push here?
It's interesting. I mean, Levis, he showed some flashes last year. Like I wouldn't say he had a great rookie year, but he definitely made enough plays where I'm not moving on from him unless one of these like top guys somehow falls to the Titans, and I don't think that's going to happen. So if I'm them, they're pretty set at receiver now with because they have DeAndre
Mm.
Hopkins, Kelvin Ridley, Traylon Burks. I'm probably going offensive tackle here. Their offensive line's pretty rough. I know they added the center, but both of their tackles stink.
All right. So with the 7th pick in the NFL draft, you think they take who?
I'm gonna go Olu Fashanu.
Oh, nailed it. I think, is that the first one? No, you've gotten a couple of
I
them,
got
right?
Caleb Williams right.
Yep,
That
you
might
did.
be it.
That was a stretch. He really had to stretch there. Yep. So our San Diego Union Tribune guy, if you're just hopping on here, the most accurate NFL mock draft over the past 5 years, also has them picking a tackle. Honestly, tackles are not that exciting, so we will move on to the 8th pick. But do you think, I guess good question would be like, do you think they could make a run for it in that division, or do you think it's the Texans to run away with?
Yeah, I think it's the Texans to run away with for a while. Not unless Will Levis takes a big step forward. It's the Texans and maybe the Jaguars.
Yeah. Ooh, you think Trevor Lawrence is like the dude?
I mean, I don't know that he's like a top 5 to 10 guys, but I mean, I think he's a solid QB.
Yeah, I mean, as we hear all this talk about the generational talent of Caleb Williams, the last time you heard generational talent was with Trevor Lawrence, and there's just so many times that you hear that. And I mean, I wouldn't trade picks for Trevor Lawrence right now. Like his
Yeah,
hair, maybe.
he would probably already own the Bears passing record.
That's yeah,
Sadly. So yeah, I would take Trevor Lawrence.
true. Okay,
But, you know,
perfect. All right. Do you think Titans are potential trade back candidates?
yeah, I definitely think they could because this is a pretty deep tackle class. So like this is where I kind of mentioned earlier. I know the Broncos don't have a lot of picks to play with, but if JJ's sitting here, there's a couple of like there's the JC Latham and then the Oregon State has a good tackle. Washington State does. I could see them moving back a few spots and just getting a tackle and a few picks.
So there are multiple mock drafts, including this most accurate NFL mock drafter over the past 5 years, who have JJ McCarthy still on the board here at 7. At 8, we now have the Atlanta Falcons on the board. The Atlanta Falcons have Michigan State's pride and joy. You like that? Kirk D. Cousins. I'm not even sure if his middle initial is D, but it sounds good. America's heartthrob since that Netflix documentary. I think we all kind of fell in love with him. He's rocking some khaki pants from Kohl's, so they would not be taking JJ McCarthy here at 8. Do you think if JJ's still on the board at 8, Atlanta is a trade back candidate, or what does Atlanta need here with the 8th pick? What do you think they're thinking?
I think they definitely could be a trade back candidate just because same thing. I would say their biggest need is probably an edge rusher, but there's not really a truly elite one that stands out. And there's a couple pretty solid ones that they might still be able to get if they trade back. They also, I know they signed Darnell Mooney, and I think he's really talented and kind of underperformed a little bit because of the Bears offense and Fields. But I don't know if they're sold on him as their number 2 guy. It's possible they would go for like a Rome Odunze or something.
So, I mean, Atlanta having Pitts, right? And Bijan, and it'll be interesting to see. Do you think Kirk Cousins, there's speculation that the Broncos might be making a run at him in this offseason if it wasn't for the tampering that happened with Cousins talking to Atlanta staff ahead of time. But do you think he has anything left coming off of an injury at that age? Do you think Cousins has anything left in the tank? What are your predictions on how they'll do with Cousins?
I think they'll be much improved. I mean, they had a pretty like top 15 defense, kind of middle of the pack, but pretty solid. And then they do have some good weapons. Their QBs were just awful last year. So I do think they'll take a big step forward. But I think if you compare their team to the Vikings of last year and the year before when Kirk was healthy for the full year, I probably would say the Vikings were better. And they got bounced in the first round by Daniel Jones. So I don't think Atlanta is truly a contender, but I do think there's a good chance they win that division because it's so bad.
I did a video on it. I think what actually might end up happening here with the Atlanta Falcons is they are not going to make this pick at 8. I think they're going to be stripped of this pick. There are several. Mike Florio reported on this, but Atlanta Falcons definitely talked to Kirk Cousins before the tampering window opened, and the NFL has come down super hard on that in past years. Obviously Miami lost a first and a third. I think last year there was a thing with the Eagles and another team where they lost a pick for a defense. Eagles and Cardinals, they lost picks. And so there are rumors that they might actually swap first round picks with the Vikings or lose that pick altogether. So I think in my mock draft, I'm going to scratch Atlanta off and say they do not have an 8th pick. Wow. So that's my prediction, my bold prediction. Paul?
That's very bold. I don't think I'm going to go that bold. I'm going to say they probably go that D end out of Alabama, Dallas Turner.
Alabama, they do, according to the most accurate mock drafter. You are 2 in a row. Dallas Turner, edge rusher out of Alabama. How do you think that's going to play out for him?
I think he should be pretty solid. I mean, you don't see a ton of defensive ends contribute right away. The only ones who really do are like the Myles Garretts and like Nick Bosa's of the world. So I don't know that he's going to be a huge difference maker year one, but I do think he'll be a good, solid pro.
Yeah. We could look at his stuff, but I don't watch a ton of that. So let's get to the exciting stuff. So still, according to this mock drafter, we still got JJ on the board. So we are now moving on to the 9th pick in the draft. It's some obscure team. I can't remember who has the 9th pick. I just saw a chat come through from that small guy. You're not that small. I'm that small guy or that small guy. I don't know. Weigh in. Is it that small guy or that small guy? Like he likes hanging out at the mall. Could go either way. Yes, we'll do a Q&A as soon as we're done with this. For sure. We'll stay on for that. So now we are on to the Chicago Bears with the 9th overall pick in the NFL draft. Talk to me about this pick and what do you think is going to happen?
So in the scenario we're in right now, I think the Bears run to the stage and draft Rome Odunze. I'm thrilled with Keenan Allen, but you don't see a ton of receivers play a long time after 30. So I think they'd love to have another young, talented receiver to build with Caleb. So I definitely think in this scenario, the Bears are taking Rome Odunze. I do think if we have a run on with wide receivers early, the Bears are another potential trade back candidate and would just go probably edge rusher, maybe even offensive tackle in the middle of the first round. But in this scenario, I think receiver is the way to go.
So as a Chicago fan, if like JJ's still on the board at 9, this is when I'm saying like I'd be okay moving up for him. What would it take for you as a Bears fan to move back to 12? What would you be happy with?
I know last year, I think the Bears moved from 9 to 10 and all they got was a 4th rounder. So I think once you move past like the top 8, you really, obviously you're moving up 3 spots here. You'd have to give up a little more, but I don't know that they'd even have to give up a second. It might just be like a 3rd round pick.
Dude, if we could just give up a 4th round draft pick and get JJ McCarthy, I would just lose my mind because everyone's saying it would take like Pat Surtain and another first. So like if that's the fact, I would just be thrilled. But you're right, like 9 to 12 for the Bears, they probably still could get the dude that they want. So but what is it you like about we'll do this here. Trigger the sound. Paul will make the pick. We'll see the mock draft and then we'll break down who he wants.
So yeah, I think with the 9th pick of the draft, the Bears are definitely going Rome Odunze.
Cool. Tell me all about him because I know nothing about him.
So he's a beast. He's big. He's fast. He's And that this is such a deep wide receiver class. He's another one of these guys who most years he's wide receiver 1. Ran a 4.45 40. He's 6'3". He's a good polished route runner. Huge vert. Just everything you would want in a wide receiver.
What would you say his pro comp is?
Pro comp, I would
Like an Eddie Royal?
Definitely not an
Okay.
Eddie Royal. I would say maybe like a little bit taller of a Stefan Diggs or like a CD Lamb,
Dang.
maybe. I don't know.
Dang.
And not to say that everyone will turn out that way, but I think that's what you would hope for when you draft him.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. His RAS score off the chart. What do you think, like as we're evaluating Nick's or Michael Penix Jr., what do you think, like is a lot of Michael Penix's production because of having like this crazy talented wide receiver? Or do you think Michael Penix is like actually a first round talent?
I think it's a little bit of both. And you've seen elite receivers struggle because they don't have a guy who can give them the ball. Penix has a rocket for an arm, but I would be worried about Penix just because of his 2 ACL tears. I think it's a little concerning how much he struggled in the Big Ten, and then he goes to the Pac-12 where defenses aren't quite as strong and has elite receivers, and all of a sudden he's great. And then he had a pretty rough national championship game once he played an elite defense. So I do think, I think for the right value, his talent is worth the chance, but he's definitely got some big red flags for me.
Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, I watch a ton of Michigan games with you, and I watched him play at Indiana multiple times, and I wouldn't have even told you. I couldn't have said his name. And then it wasn't until that Texas game that I was like, "Oh yeah, I want the Broncos to get him." And then you watch him in that national championship game against an actual defense that is loaded with first round talent, and he just didn't look the same. And so, yeah, I do wonder if Rome Odunze would be, yeah, part of the reason he was so successful. Okay, well, according to the most accurate NFL draft over the past 5 years, they also have the Chicago Bears. Rome might be burning, but I don't know, some sort of Rome is burning or okay. So all right, Rome Odunze off the board. So we are now so you, after like being awful, you have been right on with this dude. So
yeah, I'm on a roll.
You're on a roll. 3 in a row. That is incredible. So now we are at the New York Jets, and their quarterback is in a dark cave right now. And then he's going to be my vice president, and that is Aaron Rodgers, who almost was a Denver Broncos quarterback for a second. Here's a good question for you and the chat. I want to hear what y'all think in the chat. Would you have rather had Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? And Aaron Rodgers, like with that injury, like did the Broncos like dodge a bullet? Because it sounds like that's the reason we hired Nathaniel Hackett, and the plan A was always to get Aaron Rodgers here, and the Packers didn't do it. So, what do you think he still got it left? Did the Broncos dodge a bullet on and off the field by getting Russell Wilson instead of him?
I mean, they might have dodged a bullet, but I think they dodged it and then got hit by another bullet. I don't know if there was really a good option there. Because even outside of the injury, his last year in Green Bay, he definitely didn't look like the same quarterback anymore. I'm not going to say he can't find it. I think there was a lot of stuff with, like, he skipped camp. He butted heads with the Packers front office. I think he kind of had checked out. So I wouldn't say it's outside of the realm of possibilities that he has a great year this year. But I think the Packers were a better team last year without him. And he obviously didn't do a whole lot for the Jets this year. So,
yeah, totally. Well, and do you think there's a future there with him? Like, do you think he has any winning left in the tank coming off an Achilles injury, ayahuasca, and all the other crazy stuff he's on? And also, since we're live on the chat, what are your thoughts on ayahuasca?
I honestly don't even know what ayahuasca is.
I don't either. Someone Google it. Throw it in the chat.
Someone let us know.
Yeah. Awesome. So, okay. So what do you think the Jets do here with the 11th pick in the NFL draft? The New York Football Jets select.
So this is a tough one because they did sign a couple like short-term answers at left tackle. And so like I think they're like we might have 1 year to go for it. So they're going to be looking for an impact talent. So I'm probably going Brock Bowers if I'm them.
Dude, have you been looking at the iPad when I pull
No,
it up?
honestly, I
Wow.
haven't. Was that right?
That is also who the most accurate NFL mock drafter over the past 5 years has the New York Jets taking, and that would make me furious. So if we don't have a quarterback fall to us at 12, that's the dude I want.
Yeah,
I just feel like he's
he's a
legit.
stud.
So yeah, talk to me about him and how you think he would fit with this Jets team.
Yeah, I mean he's one of those guys where like when he's on the field lined up at tight end, you don't know what's going to happen because like some of these tight ends when they're out there, they're not blocking. Like they're not good blockers. He can block. Like you can put him out there and run the ball and count on him as a sixth offensive lineman. And you also can drop back to pass, and he's probably your best receiver on most teams. Like he, in my opinion, is a lot more talented than Sam Laporta is, and you saw how good Sam Laporta was last year.
Yeah. In my Madden league that I'm playing, just there's a lot of correlation, right? Very accurate. I got him with 12 and they got Michael Penix, and he's always open. So I think that's gonna happen for the Broncos, right?
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think is there any thought in your mind of like I remember hearing Kyle Pitts was gonna be that dude, or I remember Noah Fant when we got him with Denver. It's pretty odd that or pretty rare that a tight end is picked early and then actually hits. So what makes you think like he's got it and isn't going to be like one of those others?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think you're definitely taking a risk there. And I've heard people say he's a top 5 talent, but it wouldn't be surprising to see him fall into the late teens or even the 20s, just because there have been so many high end misses on tight ends. And I think some of it, though, is there was a very long time where if you drafted a tight end, they probably weren't playing very often until year 2 or
Yeah.
3 because they just needed to put on more size before they could block these DNs. But I think you saw with Laporta last year and even Dalton Kincaid once Dawson Knox went down, he did very well for the Bills. I think you're starting to see more tight ends produce as rookies, and he's probably the best tight end prospect in a while. What's hard is he's probably the best tight end prospect since Kyle Pitts, but I do think a lot of that is the Falcons' fault. They
Hmm.
like Kyle Pitts has never been really interested in blocking. I think he sees himself more as a wide receiver, and I think the Falcons just want him to go out there and block for Bijan and have kind of botched the way they use him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that to me of why I hope if we don't get a quarterback in the first round, we get him is you just look at how important a tight end is to this flourishing Sean Payton offense. And I think Dulcich has the potential, but his injury is just checkered at best, and we can't count on him to finish a year. And so having a guy like this that can come in and play, I just think you got Jeremy Shockey. Like, how many incredible tight ends has obviously
I think Drew Brees was at his best when they had Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, 100%. And you can look at when Sean Payton was an offensive coordinator with the Cowboys, he's always had an awesome tight end, and I think that would just open up this offense so much. One of the more interesting rumors that I have just heard recently is Sir Thomas Brady is rumored to maybe still have a little tire left on his, or a little tread left on his tires. And he reportedly told Mike Florio that the teams he'd consider coming back to would be Commanders, Vikings, and the Denver Broncos. We know Sean Payton wanted to link up with Tom Brady when they were in Miami. Miami got docked a first and a third round pick because of it. So there's already that relationship there. How nuts would it be to have Tom Brady and a mini Gronkowski playing here?
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. That'd be a lot of fun to watch, and yeah, I mean he could definitely elevate them if he's still got something left in the tank.
They say he's like faster than Gronkowski, but like less murdery than Aaron Hernandez.
That's exactly,
which is like the combo you're looking
that's what
for,
you're looking for,
right?
yes.
Okay. People are saying no on Brady. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's would they have to give up a pick for him? Do the
No.
Buccaneers still have his rights, or did
No.
he?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, he's done. All right, so we are on. Oh, so we said, yep, Brock Bowers went there. So now we are on to the 11th pick. Minnesota Vikings. If this is how it plays out, I'm going to be furious that this is what happens. JJ's still on this board. What do you think the Minnesota Vikings do?
Yeah, and they're if this is a scenario, they're like crying tears of joy that JJ's still there. I do think he ends up a Viking, but I think they have to trade up to 5 to get him. But in this scenario, easy pick right here. They're taking JJ.
Yep. According to the most accurate mock drafter in NFL history over the past 5 years, the Minnesota Vikings are going to take JJ McCarthy at 11, which is like the absolute worst case scenario for the Broncos. Like if he falls all the way there and he's still on the board at 10, you do everything you can. I guess, is there any way, like if you're Sean Payton, are you kind of like holding out hope that maybe he's going to fall to you at 11, or are you just dumb if he's still on the board at 10 to not try to jump him?
I mean, I think truly, if you think he is the guy, like if Sean Payton is convinced he's the guy, I think you got to get him at 4 or 5. Like you can't, like if you truly believe that you have a franchise altering quarterback, I don't think you just like sit there and hold the cards and wait and hope. I think you make the move to get him.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we have to at this point just trust the process. You can't skip steps. And I trust Sean Payton and George Payton. Like I feel like we were kind of a laughing stock. We have not been living up to our ways, but everything changed when we got the richest owner in sports and we got Sean Payton, and he is a winning coach, and we just got to trust that he evaluates quarterback talent. And even if that means we're moving on from Cortland or we're moving on from Pat Surtain, like that is a thing that will make the chat in the comments just blow up, because we all love Pat Surtain. He's my favorite player on this team right now. But if I trust Sean Payton to find his guy, and if that means we have to trade up, then that's what we got to do, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely. And I think you got to trust. I mean, obviously, you'd like to have more draft capital or not, but Sean Payton hit on like a lot of 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks when he was with the Saints. Like, even if you got to give up a 1st or a 2nd, like, I think you trust that he can still build the team with what he's got.
So, oh yeah, I think we're all okay giving up picks. I think the thing that makes us all worry is giving up Pat Surtain. Like I mean, you agree as an outsider that he's the best quarterback or the best corner in the NFL, right?
Yeah, he's definitely up there.
Cool. I'm saying, is he the best corner in the NFL? Who's better than him?
Absolutely. No, nobody's better than him.
No, you're being sarcastic. Who do you think's better than him?
I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm like some cornerback expert who watches all the tape. I think
I do.
You definitely put him in the same class as like Sauce Gardner, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith.
All the dudes who at the Pro Bowl said that Pat Surtain was better than them. Okay, moving on. So the Denver Broncos are on the board at 12, having just missed out on JJ. Brock is off the board. Brock Bowers is off the board. The tackles are off the board. What do you think that the Denver Broncos are going to do at 12? Make your pick.
Oh boy.
And as he's making it, everyone in the draft, with what has played out, we're going through the most accurate mock drafter over the past 5 years. We got JJ off the board, Jaden off the board, Drake Maye off the board, and Caleb Williams off the board, and Brock Bowers is off the board. So what would you all choose right here with this given scenario? Seeing trade back, get a 2nd. Barry saying edge or DL. Sherry saying Nix is the fix. Mike is saying.
How's your O line? Like,
awesome.
Do you have a good left tackle?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's old. It's Garrett Bowles, but I think
he
Pro
was
Football
old when you drafted him, wasn't he?
Yeah, yes, he was. He's gotten less holy, which is really good. But we got incredible guards. Our issue is center. You're not going to take a center at 12. But I mean, Pro Football Focus has said we have one of the best O-lines in the league, and I feel really good about that.
So there are a couple good tackles right here.
Yeah.
Still, the J.C. Latham out of Bama, and a couple guys I can't really pronounce their names even. But
that's not okay to say that, Paul. That
sorry. What about edge rushers? How do you feel about your edge rushers?
Legit incredible about it. So we got Jonathan Cooper. So the other thing that I feel great about is George Payton is an incredible drafter, and he doesn't get credit for it because he hasn't had picks because of this Russell Wilson thing. But Baron Browning was Pro Football Focus's one of the top-rated edge rushers as well. When he came back, our defense made a total turnaround. He was injured our first 4 games, which is why we started 1-5. When he came back, night and day difference. We got Jonathan Cooper was a 7th round pick. He just had to get a player bonus from 2023 because he was one of the top producers. We just got a platoon of dudes. We got this cat, Nick Benito, who's the craziest pass rusher. His run defense isn't that great. And then Drew Sanders, who we drafted, I think out of Bama, right? No, Arkansas. They're moving him to edge as well. Okay. And so I feel very, very good about our edge rushers. We don't have a Daniil Hunter or a dude who you put up on the sign of Mile High or something, but we have a platoon of guys, and truly that was made. Job done. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Then did you play the song yet?
Yeah, okay. It's not a song. It's a jingle.
A jingle.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's 2 options here. I think if you like Bo Nix, you take him. Personally, I do like Bo Nix. I think he's very accurate. I think he kind of fits the Sean Payton mold. Good at getting the ball into the hands of his playmakers. I wouldn't hate it if the Broncos took Nix. I think there's also been rumors you could trade down and still get Nix later, but if they don't believe in Bo Nix, I'm probably trading down here. This is a pretty deep first round. I think Broncos have a need at receiver, and I don't think any of the receivers are quite good enough to go number 12. But you trade down into the 20s and add another 2nd and 3rd and go for that other guy out of LSU or Xavier Worthy or one of those guys, and I think that's the way to go. So I'm going to say a trade down.
Trade down is Paul's pick. My thing on this, Paul, I know you're a fan of the show, is that I end every video swishing a shot. In the comments, they can tell you I have never once missed a shot. So I'm going to make the shot and then tell you who I think the Denver Broncos are picking at 12. And then we'll look at the most accurate NFL mock drafter. Oh, I don't want to jinx the Nuggets game. We're down 10 to the Lakers right now. This is not good. Man. We need to come back. All right, here it is. Kobe. Oh, gosh. I actually miss it most of the times. Vouch for me. How small is this room?
That's pretty small. Not a lot of room between the ceiling and the hoop to get the proper arc to get that in there. That's a tough shot.
No one ever has believed that excuse, but it's true. It's it's very, very small. I think that the Denver Broncos are going to select Bo Nix here at 12.
Okay.
And that is also what the most accurate mock drafter in over the past 5 years of NFL mock drafts thinks as well. Paul, talk to me about why do you think Bo Nix would be a fit, and how would you feel about that?
So I know a lot of people hate on the fact that he's pretty old. I see Spartan Sports Talk in there saying he's Brandon Weeden. But he's not that old. Here. Brandon Weeden was 35 when he was drafted. But I think it's a lot of experience. He's played 5 years as a starter. And a lot of these guys, the Trubiskys of the world, and this is why I kind of worry about Drake May, only started a year and a half. And that's just not a lot of reps. This guy has a lot of reps. And a lot of these Pac-12 guys worry me because not a lot of defense in the Pac-12. But he was a pretty solid quarterback in the SEC too. He's been great. I guess I wouldn't say he was great at Auburn, but he's been good at Auburn, great at Oregon, 2 completely different systems, and was able to mold the 2 different styles. And he's just super accurate. I think he had a 77% completion percentage last year. And I know his team's talented, but your average college football fan probably can't name a bunch of Oregon. No. Nobody's complaining about how Jaden Daniels had Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. He didn't have guys like that. And I think he had 45 touchdowns to 3 picks last year. He just shredded everybody. Very few mistakes, very accurate. And kind of Drew Brees-esque with that accuracy and protecting the football. And he's a little taller than Breeze, I believe, too.
Yeah. Yeah, Sean Payton like really values on-time throws. That was the thing about Russell Wilson that just drove him nuts, was that Sean Payton would have the system drawn up to, hey, you're going to hit Jerry Jeudy on this break and that play is going to set up this next one. And Russell Wilson is best when the play breaks down, and it's the play after the play that Russell Wilson was way better at. But that's not what Sean Payton wants. He wants a guy who can get the ball on time where it's supposed to be, and that all is going to rely on your brain and your ability to process a defense. And I think we saw that and have heard that in all of how Sean Payton has talked about how he's doing this evaluation. He never once has mentioned arm strength or like athleticism. He talks about the fact that the night before he met with JJ, the night before he met with Bo Nix, the night before he met with Michael Penix Jr., he drops them, like emails them a massive file at like 6:00 the night before and then grills them on it the next day. And he said, it's so much information that there's no way they could possibly take it in. And I want to see what they remember and how they process things under pressure. So that is what Sean evaluates. That's what he wants. And Bo Nix, a coach's son, he's incredibly smart, incredibly gifted in that way. But it worries me just looking here. We have the Ringer NFL draft board. I love this thing. If you haven't checked it out, y'all should check out the Ringers draft board. It worries me that the Denver Broncos are picking their 40th best player at 12. And I agree. If Sean Payton is truly in love with him, I hope we take him at 12. But I just feel like there is a risk there. Do you think that's too much of a stretch to be getting Bo Nix at 12?
I mean, there's always a premium to pay for a quarterback. Like, if most years the top QB prospect isn't a top 10 overall prospect, but they still generally go number 1 just because it's such an important position. I wouldn't really worry about it. And I know a lot of Broncos fans are like, oh, if he's the 40th prospect, then let's just trade down or take him in the second round or trade down to late first. But if he's your guy, you can't take that risk because you got a division rival right behind you who kind of needs a QB with the Raiders. Like, you cannot risk letting him fall past you if you think he's the guy.
Totally. So that's what I think is going to happen. That is also what, so it's kind of like the three of us all agree, Bo Nix at 12. But I guess after how all this has played out, my big hope is, man, if JJ is still on the board at 8, 9, 10, 11, we do everything we can to go and get him. So you mentioned it, the Vegas Raiders. I can't get that in my head that they're in Vegas. Worst franchise in the league. What do you think of them?
Oh yeah, they're a dumpster fire. I mean, it's fun to gamble there now. Like, that's really all they have. I don't like. You can go watch one of their games and have a good weekend, but that's about it.
Yeah. And you know what they say, what happens in Vegas
stays in Vegas.
They never win in Vegas. Although they've really had the Broncos number here. Do you, they are a quarterback needy team. Do you envision them? There's been a lot of talk that they might be trying to trade up early for one of those top 3 dudes. Do you think they might be trying that, or what do you think they're thinking here at 13?
I mean, I definitely would be. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting there with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and being like, let's roll. We got it. We're good here. Like, they definitely need a QB. And as we've seen in this mock draft, only Penix is left. So unless they're content with Penix being their guy, they're probably going to need to look at moving up.
All right. So what do you think? And what is up with Jimmy G? He was doing roids or something?
Something like that.
Somebody tell us.
Viagra?
Paul, this is not that's not how YouTube works. You can't just say that.
I apologize.
Edit that out. Jamie? That Joe Rogan has Jamie and he can just do stuff. It's just us in our basement. Really.
Well, you need to work on getting that.
I need a Jamie. All right. So with the 13th overall pick in the NFL draft, who do the Vegas Raiders take?
I'm going to say I'm going to go Quinyon Mitchell. The corner from Toledo. I think he is the best corner in the draft, and they do well to go for him there.
Well, crazy. According to the most accurate mock drafter over the past 5 years, the Vegas Raiders are going to take Michael Penix Jr.
Okay.
So how nuts would that be? Like, what are your actual thoughts on how many quarterbacks are going, going in this first round? Like, there's no way you have 6 quarterbacks go in the first 13 picks, right?
Yeah, that's very rare. I'd be curious to see historically how many times that's happened. I
Never.
can't imagine it's many.
No. Do you think that's a huge reach on Michael Penix Jr.?
I do, yeah. While I think Knicks, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but that is worth it. I think Penix, with the whole not being good until he had the elite receivers and not being good until he was in the weaker conference defensively, that's a huge red flag. And he's torn his right ACL twice. And he's left-handed. I mean, I don't want to.
Aren't you left-handed? My wife
No,
is.
she is,
Yeah.
isn't she?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Smoke show too.
Sorry.
Your sister, Paul.
Let's refrain from jokes about my sister.
Okay.
We'll make fun of. She and Michael Penix are both left-handed, and I don't see that working out. It's just not natural. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that is who the Vegas Raiders are picking. I guess as far as like this being a Broncos channel, we don't really care about anything else left. What are some other interesting picks, like now 13 through 32, other things we'd want to talk through? Let us know in the chat, other things you want us to go through. I think, Blue 3 Monster, just said Spencer Rattler. Dude, I watched that Netflix documentary on him when he was in high school, and he was a little Caleb Williamsy, like really full of himself in high school. But man, I have been hyped on him, and like in all reality, if the Broncos were to get like Brock Bowers and then take a run at the Tulane quarterback, or Spencer Rattler in like a really late round, or even the Tennessee quarterback who's like got that huge arm. What do you think about the strategy for the Broncos of waiting for a quarterback in a later round like a Spencer Rattler?
I definitely think the Broncos should, if they don't take a QB in the first round, I think they should take a flyer on one. Rattler might be the guy to do it. He lost his job to Caleb Williams, so he may have the same attitude, but not the same skill. But I think Milton from Tennessee, he went to Michigan before he went to Tennessee, so I've seen him quite a bit, seen him in person a couple times. Guy's got the strongest arm on planet Earth. Literally could like throw a football through me. Just
Is he the one who threw the orange like across?
Yeah.
He like lined up on the goal line and threw a orange goal line to goal line, which I don't know how that translates to, but maybe like if Tom Brady deflated it and then it was like orange size.
Yeah. No, and that guy's got a cannon for an arm, but he would be a horrible fit for Sean Payton. I'd be shocked because he like really struggled with his accuracy, really struggled reading defenses, didn't process fast. I don't see him as a fit at all for Sean Payton, despite how great his arm is. Rattler would be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think if they don't take a QB in the first round, they at least got to take a flyer on somebody. You never know when you're going to get a Brock Purdy or one of these other guys who pans out.
So, and that's the issue with Russell Wilson it was that he was getting Patrick Mahomes money for not Patrick Mahomes production. There are very few quarterbacks who can be the linchpin of your offense. And I think Sean Payton's the type of dude who will build an offense that Joe Schmo can run. And so I don't think it's a horrible idea to try to get a Spencer Rattler or that Tulane quarterback or any of these other dudes. Man, the Nuggets are going on a run since I swished that shot a couple seconds ago. Bron, the Nuggets the Lakers we're your daddy. What was the saying? Who's your daddy? That's what they said. Right. Yeah. Cool. Anything else in the draft that is interesting to you? I guess if the Broncos weren't going to take a quarterback in Bo Nix, what do you think would be the best pick for the Broncos at 12?
Well, I had said I think a trade down and taking a receiver late first is the best pick. I know you like your edge rushers. I really like that. I think it's pronounced Leitu out of
UCLA.
UCLA. I mean,
Yep.
there's a little bit of a concern because I think he had to like retire at
Yes,
one
because
point.
of like a neck injury or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
but it sounds like all his medicals have panned out, and he is just a beast. Like I saw on a Twitter. Oh, it's not Twitter anymore.
it's X,
X,
and you're
my
canceled
fault.
for saying that.
I saw somebody talking the other day about how a defensive line coach was saying like they've coached a lot of these guys who've gone in the first round in the last few years, and Leitu's the only one who they say like, dude's going to be a 10 sack guy year one. So like I do think he would be a stud for them.
I mean, if you did trade back that Chop Robinson, the Penn State edge rusher, looks
Chop
decent.
Robinson, he's fast.
And as we're talking Penn State, we could do quick moment of silence for Joe Pa, because he kept silent about the Sandusky stuff.
Yes.
Okay, we're live. Let's cut
Yeah,
that.
let's
Cut that part. All right. So any other interesting draft thing? I mean, after 13, I mean, you and I are going live Thursday night. We're gonna have some guests, but any other interesting things that we're gonna be watching 13? Any other? Could you see some teams trading in? Anything else that interests you?
Well, some of it'll depend on who falls. Like if Nix or Penix doesn't go early, a lot of times,
right?
Huh?
Yeah, we'll all just be watching. Like, yeah, well,
yeah. Well, I don't think they were invited this year because of what happened to Levis last year. They don't want somebody in the watch room sitting there for a whole day. But I think you always see one of these teams trade into the end of the first round to grab those guys so that they get that 5th-year option. So I think that'll be something to keep an eye on if they fall. I think it'll be fun to watch the receivers go off the board, like the Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Lad McConkey. Like all those guys could potentially be round 1 guys. I hate to say it, but I could see one of them ending up in Kansas City. Hopefully he drag races Rashee Rice and they both
wow,
get wiped out. But
oh my god.
Well, like what, suspended, not no injuries or
sorry guys.
Cut this, please.
Cut. Jamie, take that part out. Sweet. Well, we cannot wait for Thursday night. We're gonna have an absolute blast. Like I said, we have our friend going to the draft. He's gonna be calling us in. We got multiple other guests in this crazy cramped studio. Another Nuggets game will be going on then as the Denver Nuggets are making their push. We said at the end of here we would do some Q&A. So do you all have any questions for Sports Talk Denver, Paul or Ben? And we'll wait for some of those to matriculate in. The Nuggets tied it up with a minute left in the first half after being down like 10 a couple times, which is very exciting. Looks like they, I think the deal with LeBron at 40 is he's got like those pushes, but he just doesn't have the stamina to keep that up a whole game. And so I think that's kind of what we saw there. Playing at altitude, that's one of the biggest advantages to the Denver Broncos and the Nuggets. That is no joke. I just went back home and you feel it even walking up the stairs. Like it is no joke. So great question, Jacob. Favorite Broncos player of all time? Ooh, that is like almost impossible to answer. Our dog upstairs, Paul. What's my dog's name? Your kid, you don't know
Bailey.
Bailey. Bailey. I gotta name the dog. I didn't get to name any of my kids, but I gotta name the dog, and so named it Bailey after Champ Bailey. I got Tim Tebow's book back there. I loved Tim Tebow. I feel like Tim Tebow coming into this NFL would be like a different player. Like I think they could make it work. Just offensive coordinators are way more inventive, whereas when he came in, you had to play a certain way, but now you got Jalen Hurts plays different, and I don't know. So I think I would say Tebow, Champ. I loved Vaughn, obviously, but I think if I had to say like my favorite player the Broncos have ever drafted, because we didn't draft Champ, obviously, we traded him from the Redskins, and we did draft Tebow, but my favorite Broncos player we ever drafted would be Demaryius Thomas. So just loved him. Rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas, my man. And I think one of my favorite moments, I remember I was living in Illinois around college, and that walk-off touchdown against the Steelers, I remember just sprinting out of my house in the winter in Illinois, taking off my shirt and just screaming down the street because I was just so excited about that. So TD for sure. Paul, how about you? Favorite Bronco of all time?
I was going to say Terrell Davis. I don't. I'm a little young for that era, but one of the things I remember of like the late '90s Broncos, I love Terrell Davis.
Mile high salute. Next question on here. We got, what scenario do you hope happens in the draft? Trade up, stay pat, or trade back? I think that if I had my dream scenario, it would be that JJ McCarthy falls to us at 12. That's my dream scenario. If that can't happen, I would say don't reach at a quarterback and hope that we could trade back and get some value. You have a dream scenario?
I'd love to see them trade up and not let JJ McCarthy go to the Vikings. And I think that'd be a good fit for JJ. I think that'd be best case scenario for the Broncos. I mean, I think absolute best is he falls to like 8 or 9 and you don't have to give up a future first for him. But yeah, I think that would be their best route.
Crilly, my man, I'm using a Sony A4. But a lot of the stuff I do on here is just my iPhone. So I plug it in to my Mac and then I use OBS, which is like when I do my normal videos. Now that I'm doing it live, I'm using StreamYard, obviously. But when I do most of my videos, I just plug directly in, get all my slides up, and then I use that as a separate monitor so that I can, I would love if I could do this full time, but I got 4 kids and I'm busy, so I got to do it in one take and no edits. So that's just the way that I just hit record, share my thoughts, and go through. So thank you. And then I got one of my favorite things about the little basement studio is I have hue lights and I can like control them on my phone, and that's kind of a cool thing. So thanks for that. Jacob, do I think Sean Payton is a good fit for the Broncos? Dude, I am so high on Sean Payton, and I just think that once he has a chance to really put his thumbprint on here, like already 42 of the 71 guys on our roster are Sean Payton dudes. And I just think I've given the analogy before of, I remember when my wife got me a video game and she got me the new Madden, but it was for an Xbox and I have a PlayStation. And even though it was like the deluxe version of Madden that was like $100 and you got that XP or whatever, it didn't work on what I had. And so even having a crappier player in the right system like helps him flourish and thrive. And we're finally, with the ownership and Sean Payton, going to be able to build his system. So I'm really high on Sean Payton and think he is a super good fit. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I completely agree. Great coach. I think he had kind of a mess to take over when he got there, and he's done a good job cleaning house of people who weren't helping, and he's obviously got supportive ownership, and yeah, I think he's going to be great there.
100%. Ooh, went to elementary school with Terrell Davis's nephew. Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
Wow, that's cool.
Oh, that'd be awesome. All right, well, thank you so much. Make sure you all are back here Thursday night. We got some special things planned for you. And we cannot wait for the NFL draft. Paul, you got to end with my catchphrase, which I'm going to change once the Broncos pick somebody. I'm going to change it. But you got to say, Broncos country, giddy up, and then you got to swish it like I always do at the end.
Oh, boy. Okay. Broncos country, giddy up. Yeah, that ceiling is low.
Yeah, he missed it too. Thanks, guys. This was a blast.